السادة الحضور الكرام، الفضاء لم يعد علما وعالما مستقلين بذاتهما، بل هو موطن ولادة اقتصاد جديد، هو اقتصاد تكنولوجيا الفضاء التي يمكن أن نذكر بعضا منها وهي تكنولوجيا صناعة السيارات الذكية ومضخات القلب والأطراف الصناعية والإنترنت والتنبؤ بالطقس والاستشعار عن بعد وغيرها مما يساهم في تحسين جودة حياة البشرية على كوكب الأرض. كل هذه المتغيرات والتطورات قد فرضت وستفرض على الدول اعتماد منهجية جديدة في سن قوانين هي أكثر مرونة وقدرة على دعم الابتكار والمحافظة على الإنسان والبيئة في نفس الوقت. الأمر الذي يحتم علينا في السياق البرلماني تطوير وتطبيق مفهوم جديد للعمل البرلماني التشريعي والرقابي يبتعد عن الروتين التقليدي ليحاكي ويواكب مسيرة وسرعة تلك المتغيرات العلمية والتقنية في عالم الفضاء وتأثير ذلك على البيئة والإنسان. السيدات والسادة الحضور، أود أن أشارككم تجربتنا في دولة الإمارات كمشرعين، حيث عملنا في أواخر عام 2019 على إصدار القانون الخاص بتنظيم قطاع الفضاء. حرصنا فيه على تجسيد قيمة وديناميكية العمل والتنسيق المشتركين بين السلطتين التنفيذية والتشريعية، حيث تمثلت أهداف القانون بتأسيس بيئة تشريعية وتنظيمية في القطاع الفضائي الإماراتي، بيئة تحترم المعاهدات الدولية وتمتاز بالوضوح والشفافية والمرونة في حماية المصالح الوطنية وتحقيق المتطلبات الاقتصادية والتجارية ومتطلبات الأمن والسلامة والمحافظة على البيئة وتشجيع الابتكار من جهة، وتعمل على الربط بين المسائل القانونية التقليدية المتصلة بتشريعات الفضاء وبين مستجدات حقل الفضاء، مثل استخدام الموارد الفضائية وتطوير السياحة الفضائية والإطلاق من الفضاء والخدمات اللوجستية في الفضاء وإدارة المخاطر الفضائية وغيرها من الجهات الأخرى. وكان لهذا القانون دورا مهما في نجاحنا في إرسال أول مسبار عربي إلى مدار المريخ في فبراير 2021، مسبار الأمل الذي أصبح شعاع أمل لكل الشباب في المنطقة، ودليلا على قدرة الدول في المنطقة على الإنجاز السريع متى ما توفرت الرؤية السديدة والبيئة التشريعية الملائمة. ونفتخر بأن الإمارات اليوم هي مركز استقطاب للبحث والباحثين والابتكار والمبتكرين ولكبرى المؤسسات العلمية والاستشارية العالمية. أتمنى لكم جميعا التوفيق في ملتقاكم هذا، ولنخرج جميعا بالنتائج الطيبة التي تتأملها منا مجتمعاتنا، وإنني على ثقة تامة أن عمل ومخرجات اجتماعنا هذا ستعزز من منهجية العمل المشترك بين السلطتين التنفيذية والتشريعية، وسيكون لها الأثر الملموس في تطوير آلية العمل البرلماني على مختلف الصعد التشريعية والرقابية بشكل عام. والله الموفق، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Like this. Dear space friends, I'm really delighted to be with all of you and to have the opportunity to strongly reaffirm that no science, innovation, technological progress, as well the research of our origins, the understanding of the universe, the benefits of space exploration for Earth are not the exclusive prerogative of scientists, researchers, and engineers. It is, and it must be, also the prerogative of politics. Because today, more than ever, our world depends on, our world depends on space assets and data. And I would like to thank IAF and ESA for having understood this very early on time. For 10 years. For 10 years now, Christian Feitinger's, his team, and ESA has been organizing this Member of Parliament meeting. And I must also thank Jean-Yves Le Gall, former IAF president, for giving me the opportunity to rethink and reshape this mock meeting. But before getting to the content of our day, I would like to join our president, Pascal Ehrenfrandt, in thanking and congratulating UA for welcoming us. Salam alaikum. And I would like to thank especially Her Excellency, Saker Gobash, Speaker of the UA National Council, and all the members of parliament of UA who are here, and Saker is my co-chair. Her Excellency Salem Al-Kubaisi, Director General UA Space Agency. Her Excellency Youssef Al-Shebani, Director General Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. I would like also to thank Sophie Primas, President of the Economic, President of the Economic Affairs Committee of the French Senate. French, you know it with also the IEC 2022. And of course, I don't forget our high-level experts for their availability and participation to the event, and I will come back to them later. Dear colleagues, it's a chance. It's a chance to be IAF Vice President with the portfolio on parliamentarians when you are a former parliamentarian. It's a wonderful opportunity to initiate a new vision of the mock meeting, but this time we will work through a parliamentarian eye. Our ambition is to make this assembly a place that more present in the life of our citizens. Because space solutions can be incredible allies in meeting specific national needs. Because space solutions create benefits in all aspects in our daily life.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning. It's an honor and a privilege to join you today. On behalf of the UAE government, our leaders, and people, I extend a warm welcome to all of you who are visiting our country for the first time. And to those who have been here before, welcome back. I would like to start by commending the International Astronautical Federation and my friend and colleagues. Thank you for bringing all spacefaring nations together under this week's theme, Inspire, Innovate, and Discover for the benefit of humankind. This week is an important occasion. For the first time ever, the International Astronomical Congress will open its doors to the global space community in the United Arab Emirates as the first Arab country to host this event since it was established in the 1950s. We are proud and humbled by this opportunity. The UAE may be a young nation, but a young nation with a big ambition for science, technology, and space exploration. Our path to create a global competitive national space industry date back to the 1970s. During the early years of our nation's founding father, the late Sheikh Zayed, Tayyibullah Tharah, met with the NASA team responsible for the Apollo moon landing. Today, we are accelerating our nation's engineering, research, and exploratory capabilities to drive innovation and opportunity for the future. In the words of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, we have set our eyes to the stars because our journey to development and progress has no boundaries, no borders, and no limits. In line with this limitless ambition, we announce our mission to send a spacecraft on a 3.6 billion kilometer journey to explore Venus and the asteroid belts between Jupiter and Mars, set to launch in 2028. The UAE manufactured spacecraft will undertake a daring journey to land on an asteroid more than 560 million kilometers from Earth. If successful, we will become only the fourth nation in the world to have accomplished such a feat. This mission was selected because it will test our scientific and technical capabilities more than ever before. It will expand our expertise, accelerate the growth of knowledge-driven capabilities and enterprises, and demonstrate our commitment to human progress. It will ensure the knowledge gained from Emirates Hope mission and future interplanetary projects is passed down to the private sector. It is our hope and ambition to ensure the UAE space industry become a competitive player in the global aerospace stage. But to do this, we need ambitious projects to private sector that can get behind. Our mission will help create new Emirati aerospace companies, space tech startups, and enterprising entrepreneurs. It will offer training programs to develop their skills in science, technology, and engineering. Importantly, we will double down on our cooperation with global research centers and universities to continue our track record of working in partnership with knowledgeable partners worldwide for the good of humanity. The first unprecedented finding captured the remarkable observation that provide new insight about the red planet, unique and rather turbulent atmosphere. Hope probe will collect more than 1,000 gigabytes of information during the mission, all of which will be given to the global community as part of the UAE's commitment to share knowledge and strengthen international cooperation. It is in this spirit of collaboration that we come together today. Ladies and gentlemen, your presence here is a symbol of the potential that lies ahead as we enter a new era of space exploration. We firmly believe in the values of cooperation and partnership. Only by working together can we create a future framework to ensure every nation has the means to explore the universe. On that note, I would like to extend my thanks and appreciation once again to the International Astronautical Federation and its 407 members from over 70 countries. It is an honor to welcome you to Dubai, and I look forward to the following days as we establish dialogue to drive forward peace, space exploration for the good of humanity. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Excellencies, members of parliament, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome you here as we sit together just a day before the start of 72nd IAC here in Dubai. The UAE over the past 15 years is looking at space as one of the key development areas for future. We are using the benefits from it to develop application and their benefits to society, knowledge and tech transfer, to build capabilities in country and develop highly skilled jobs as well as international cooperation and development. Partnerships and collaboration are the foundation of successes in space. At the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, we have partnered with multiple agencies and entities over the past decades. We firmly believe that partnership and cooperation are essential in today's space world. Technological and scientific advancements are not limited to a single country. The more we work together to tackle complicated challenges for the good of mankind, the greater our future will be. While it's clear that next stage of space exploration will be more global, it will also involve greater opportunities for private and public partnerships. The UAE's vision for the next period is focused on getting the private sector and startups involved and active in space. Events such as the members of parliament and the IAC are tools that we use to build stronger cooperation between us. I wish you all the best in your discussions today, and I wish you all pleasant stay in Dubai. Thank you.
Excellencies, members of the Parliament, dear Chairman, dear Dominic, dear Vice President, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank you very much for your invitation and for your presence here today. I am very pleased to attend to this event, and I'm truly honored to have been appointed Vice President. I have long been interested in space issues and I have had the opportunity on many occasions as a local elected official and as a member of parliament in France to reiterate my support for research and industrial innovation in the space sector. I share with you your curiosity for a field where scientific advances seem infinite. I share with you your wonder at the daily progress of the conquest of space and the ambition of the companies that support it. I share with you your desire to democratize access to space and to spread more widely to companies and citizens all over the world the knowledge that we are accumulating through technological advances, experiments, and now manned flights. I, above all, am aware with you of the extent of the economic, environmental, and geopolitical challenges that await us. In this regard, I have decided to renew my commitment to public space policies. The year 2022 will be a great space year, not only because of Ariane 6 first launch. I hope it will be a great space year, and I hope to be able to experience it with you. I am pleased to announce that the French Senate, thanks to its President Gérard Larcher, will organize next year the European Inter-Parliamentary Space Conference, whose plenary session will be held in Paris in September, a session in which our colleagues from the French Parliament will, of course, be fully associated. With my dear colleague, Senator Claude Raynal, whom I have the pleasure to meet here again in Dubai, we have decided that the organization of this conference makes sense as the IAF event and the IAC Congress will also be held in Paris in September 2022, the same time as our Heritage Days, which is a good opportunity to visit Paris. I hope to have the pleasure of working with you at the very different events in order to contribute together to the development of an innovative and efficient space sector open to a wider public. Thank you very much for your participation.
please, may I ask to the parliamentarians who make a presentation to come here on the scene, please? For the first topic, so Michel. Huh?
I'm Sergio from Brazil.
Yes, I know. So, Bastien Lachaud, Cristana Gianopapa. Huh? Boguslav Wonto. Yes, and Jacob Brisenko. Okay. Okay, thank you. I would like to thank again our high-level speakers, our high-level experts who accompany us along all this meeting. They will present each topic and they will be the moderator of the topics. So our first session is Space Solutions for Health and Emergency. Our high-level expert is Joseph Aschbacher. He's well known. He is Director General of the European Space Agency. Mr. Aschbacher, I give you the floor.
Thank you, Dominique. Good morning, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear members of Parliament and heads of space agencies. It's a great pleasure and a great honor to moderate this first session and also to give a few introductory words and a few slides in order to kick off this topic. The topic is space solutions for health and emergency, and we really have a very distinguished panel. I may introduce one by one of these members of the panel. We have Sergio Freitas de Almeida, Vice Minister, Brazilian Minister of Science, Technology and Innovations. We have Mr. Bastien Lachaud, Member of Parliament of the Parliament of France. We have Katarina Constellation, Advisor to the Secretary General of the Greek Ministry of Telecommunications and Post. We have Jakub Brisenko from the Polish Parliament, replacing Mr. Boguslav Wonto. And we have Mahama Ouedraogo, head of the African Union Commission for Education, Science, Technology and Innovation of the African Union. So if you allow me, I show a few slides just to open the theme, but the purpose of this meeting really is to hear, of course, my panel speakers and have a discussion on the topic of health and emergencies. Let me start by introducing with a few words of what ESA is doing in this domain and what the future of the European Space Agency is in the next couple of years. And by doing so, I point you to a document called Agenda 2025, which is a strategy document, a policy document, which we have published just a few months ago. It is a document that lays out where Europe wants to go in space in the next decade. And we have taken 2035 as a starting point to understand where we want to be in space as Europe and how we want, as a European Space Agency, be a good partner to the international community. And therefore, I'm very happy to see so many heads of agencies from different space agencies in the world assembled here, and I really look forward also to the Congress this week, where our activities will be brought together with other heads of agencies and to see how ESA and Europe can work together with other countries in the world. So what we are focusing on for the next couple of years with a vision of the next decade, and the next decade really means that we would like to be a strong space agency for Europe, but also be a strong partner to other agencies in the world. So we have underlined a number of points. First and foremost, of course, within Europe, to have a very strong and clear relationship and cooperation with the European Union. The European Union and ESA, as you know, have slightly different sets of member states. They are different organizations, and the European Space Agency is certainly working already very closely with the European Union, but I would like to reinforce this relationship, which is working extremely well for several decades already. Commercialization, I don't need to explain to you what commercialization means and how fast it changes the face of space globally. And also in Europe, it is clear that we need to advance commercialization as a new driver of space activities. And there's a lot of individual actions which we are proposing as part of these activities that are supposed to come. Safety and security, again, this is something that is well understood and well known. Safety meaning safety of our assets in space, our satellites, our astronauts, protecting them from collisions through space debris need to be brought forward and advanced. And last but not least, transforming ESA as a make sure fast, dynamic, responsive, especially for new space companies that are coming more and more, and making sure that we are driving the space sector successfully in Europe. Is a gas that is related to pollution. It is caused by industry and traffic first and foremost. It has a relatively short lifetime of about 6 hours, and therefore you can immediately identify the sources of this pollution here in this slide in the red color. And what you see in this image is it is flipping forth and back between 2019 and 2020. 2019, as you know, has been before the COVID crisis, 2020 when the lockdowns occurred, and then again 2021 after the crisis. And you see very clearly that during the lockdown, the color is not as red, meaning that the pollution levels in these regions have been much lower compared to the normal situation before and afterwards. And you see here that the value of the NO2 concentration is going down by about 50%. That means about half of the pollution or half of NO2 in this particular case has been emitted when the lockdown occurred, which was at the peak in March, April 2020. But this is a very good example of how space can help people also in times of crisis. In fact, I was initiating when the crisis started. I was at that time stationed in Italy, and Italy in Europe was the first country which was really hit very hard by the COVID crisis. You have all seen the terrible images in television and in the media. Actually, when this happened right on the first days, I was asking my team in ESA to really make sure that we put our satellites at the services of people, help understand what happens, and help understand people to come out of the crisis as quick as we can. And we established a dashboard where we monitored key parameters which you can see from space, which are linked to the crisis, linked to agricultural production, linked to water quality, linked to air quality, and linked to many aspects where also the crisis was impacting our life very significantly. Many of them, of course, also of economic nature. If you monitor the number of cars on a parking lot of factories, if you monitor the airplanes parked on the tarmac, you get an immediate impression of what happens and what the impact is of COVID on the crisis. This dashboard we introduced first to the European level with the European Commission, to the press, and then in a second step we expanded the dashboard to NASA and JAXA to join, and now it is live and is monitoring a number of parameters which you can see, which have been affected due to the COVID crisis. Let me show another example, since we talk of emergencies in this session, which is shown here on the left-hand side, flooding, which has been very severe in Europe last summer. And on the right-hand side, fires, here in this case of Greece. I'm very happy to have Christina Chanopapo with us, where we have been really using our satellites to help immediately in case of crisis, making sure that we monitor the areas, help fire brigade people what has to be done, which areas are burned, which roads are still accessible, which bridges are still working, or which ones are not, and in order to direct emergency services in need of help. And also, of course, when the crisis is subsiding, you need to assess which areas are damaged in order to really then for recovery operations, also for insurance claims and similar activities. So here, again, satellites are helping in daily life people in need when information is required. And also this is done in an international framework. There's the International Charter of Space and Major Disasters, which is existing since more than two decades now. We have 17 space agencies that are members of the Charter, and the principle is a very simple one. If there is a big disaster, a member state or a member of the Charter can request help from the other members, and what the other members are doing is they provide satellite data for free to the emergency services which are requiring this information. And this is a very powerful network because it unites the space agencies who are joining or who have joined this charter in order to provide this data for free in order to help regions, countries that have been requiring this information. You see here 734 activations, 129 countries have benefited, 61 satellites are used for this purpose, 17 members of the charter, 84 authorized users in 75 countries are being served. And what we are producing is really this type of maps you see here in case of floodings, fires, earthquakes, storms, or whatever major disaster that may occur. And this is done globally in all the regions which are using it. This is working well, but I have to say it also has its limitations because we are using satellites that are used for other purposes, and of course we apply them in case of crisis for this purpose. So what we plan to do, what we want to do is to reinforce this capacity, and this is now an activity that relates to Europe, where we are discussing how we can reinforce our satellite network in case of crisis. So what we have is already fantastic capabilities in Europe through Copernicus and Galileo, our two flagship programs we implement together with the European Union and the European Space Agency and our member states. But there needs more to be done. First, more satellites are required, but also satellites that can immediately act in space with computing capability in space, artificial intelligence, cognitive computing in the cloud in order to make sure that information is provided straight to the users down on ground as quick as possible, but also with fast programming to make sure that we don't have to wait until a satellite flies over, but to really have much more satellites in space in order to have a much faster response. Because today, if we are lucky, we have a satellite flying over a crisis area at the same day. If we are unlucky, it can take a couple of days in order to get images, and this has to be increased through a constellation, also driven by the commercial sector of very high resolution satellites. And this leads me to a discussion we're having right now with our member states, which is what does Europe need to do and how Europe wants to focus its activities on space. And based on advice from politicians, which I invited to advise me as Director General over the last couple of months, we have identified 3 domains where we need to focus space for citizens. And I'm very happy that we have politicians here in this room, because you know what it means to help people, citizens on the ground, and use space to the best effort which we can. One conclusion they made when discussing is that space today is underutilized, and we should much better use it for the needs of people. And we have identified these 3 domains here as the focus areas. First of all, space for a green future. There's in almost all the countries, certainly in Europe, but globally, a huge effort undertaken to combat climate change. We have the Paris Agreement, which is in place and which is successfully implemented. We have many other national and regional initiatives which are fighting climate change and the impacts of climate change. Decarbonization is a very important topic to become carbon neutral. Most countries by mid of the century want to reach really carbon neutrality, and we want to use space to help them doing that with decision methods, with observations, we want to create a digital twin of our planet to make sure that we understand, but also can simulate what needs to be done in order to become carbon neutral with measurements from space, with measurements on the ground, with modeling, modeling both of the Earth system, but also socioeconomic impacts, and therefore predict and simulate the future. Another part which is quite important as part of this Green Future Accelerator is factories producing green products for agriculture, for transport, for energy, helping decision makers what needs to be done. A second accelerator is rapid and resilient crisis response, as I just explained through the example of the Charter, to really magnify this effort and make sure that we have a solid, robust system in place in order to help people in Europe, but actually globally, because also we would like to be a strong partner to the international community to provide information, help whenever there is a need. And protecting space assets to our own satellites, astronauts, to make sure that we can provide this information through our satellite network, and we can avoid debris, that we can protect from asteroids, that we can protect from solar flares which are happening, which are impacting electronics, not only in space, but also on the ground. And this information on space weather is extremely important. And these accelerators will go quite a long way. What I'm proposing to my member states, and this is really an element of discussion right now. We had a council meeting of the ESA member states just a couple of days ago, where we discussed exactly how we do it. I'm not going into all these details here, but the goal is to build on existing capabilities, which we have already built up. We have one of the leading Earth observation programs worldwide through Copernicus. We would like to further build it up, make it available also to international partners, making sure that we are linking with other partners. And it is a federated effort of the European Space Agency, with the European Commission, with the member states, making good use of all the assets and all the activities that are in the member states to make as a building block in building up this major framework, which will develop into a future flagship program. We want to strengthen also European leadership, to be a good partner on the negotiation table of other space agencies and other partners, and also provide this assistance in global cooperation opportunities as diplomacy, European diplomacy, contribution to international cooperation. And this is a bit the road ahead, which you see. It's not a straight line, as always in politics. You have to meander through the various elements that are at stake, but it really means that we want to make sure that Europe is addressing these issues. We are planning a space summit, as you see here on this diagram, in 2022. It's actually, the date is set already under the French EU presidency coming up next year, and the ESA co-presidency. Today, France and Portugal are the co-presidents at ministerial levels of the ESA member states. And France has therefore both functions, as an ESA co-president and as a EU president, to organize this space summit. It is planned on the 16th of February in Toulouse, inviting both member states to make sure and define the future of some of these activities, which I just outlined here: the accelerators, rapid response, green future, protecting our assets, and how we move forward. And then, of course, we have on the ESA side a ministerial conference at the end of next year, where we classically collect subscriptions from member states to our program proposals to define and guarantee program implementation for the next couple of years, which is working extremely well and extremely successfully. And with this, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. So since I'm also not only a speaker, but also the moderator of this session, I would like to invite the next speaker, who is Sergio de Almeida, to come to the podium and present his activities for Brazil. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my first time in this wonderful city of Dubai, and I really appreciate this opportunity to share with you some of the Brazilian technologies and experiences about the use of space and technologies developed in the space sector for health, disaster prevention, and emergency response. Can you put our presentation in place? Okay, thank you. Well, the importance of space technologies for Brazil is highlighted by its continental dimensions. Brazil spreads over more than 8.5 million kilometers, making it the fifth largest country in the world. And Brazil's territory corresponds to almost half of the South America. 59% of the Brazilian territory is covered by forests, more than 200 million people. We are number 6 in population. And Brazil is divided in 26 states and the federal district. We have more than 5,000 cities and more than 42 basic unit healths and approximately 180 public schools. These numbers give you an idea of how important space technologies are to our country in areas such as environmental monitoring or connectivity provision to remote areas. Brazil has invested a lot of human resources and money in developing satellites for Earth observation and environmental monitoring. Through a network of Brazilian and international satellites, the National Institute for Space Research, INPE, operates a set of monitoring systems and services covering deforestation and wildfires. And let me remind you that this year, we see a reduction in deforestation in Brazil. The National Center for Monitoring and Early Warnings on Natural Disasters, CEMADEM, that provides early warnings on natural disasters, relied on the same satellite network. All data and images collected are accessible to the general public through the internet for free. National development of Earth observation satellites have been a priority for many years in Brazil. The CBERS program is a successful partnership with China that has improved the technological development for both partners and resulted in a network of observation satellites currently in operation. The Amazonia 1, launched earlier this year, was the first satellite to be completely developed and integrated in Brazil. It has been in operation and has already produced beautiful and important images of our territory, as you can see in this image of São Paulo and its coastal region. It has been in operation since this year. Another important project currently underway is the Katarina Constellation, a series of 13 nanosatellites to be launched in the following years that will have applications for disaster prevention and agriculture. In a large country as Brazil, providing internet access to the population is a major challenge, especially in remote areas. Satellite communications, therefore, are an important alternative to be considered. For that purpose, Brazil acquired the Geostationary Satellite for Defense and Strategic Communication, SGDC, that has been an important tool in bringing remote areas to our territory to the digital age. The SGDC has been largely used to connect schools and health units to the internet, enabling them to access information, as well as public digital services that run on in the internet. Particularly for health units, access to the internet allows them to use telemedicine and e-health services while also being able to connect to governmental management systems through which they can order medicines and medical supplies. Broadband connectivity proved to be an essential tool to health systems worldwide in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Connectivity provided by the SDGDC can also have relevant applications in emergency responses, as illustrated by connections provided by state operator Telebras right after the Brumadinho Dam landslide to support first emergency response teams. The space sector can also be a relevant source of innovation and a main contributor to the recovery process after the economic crisis resulted from the COVID-19 pandemic. With that in mind, Brazil is pursuing new investments to improve technological development in this sector. In 2019, governments of Brazil and the United States signed a Technological Safeguards Agreement, TSA, regarding the use of the Alcântara Space Center. With this agreement signed, the Space Center can be commercially used as a launch platform for American companies, as well as international corporations that use American technologies, profiting from its unique geographical advantages. We expect that once the Alcântara Space Center becomes a major international launch location, it will enable a series of local developments in the space industry, sparking innovation and value creation. In parallel, scientific effort aimed at the development of the new satellites continue, including the Katarina Constellation and other projects that are being developed in our country. Finally, let me humbly remind you that Brazil is a candidate for the IAC 2024. And I hope we can see you all again in the vibrant city of São Paulo. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sergio Freitas de Almeida. Can I please ask the next speaker, Bastien Lochot, as the Member of Parliament of the Parliament of France, for his next intervention. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Space services for public health provide innovative tools to improve lives, sustainable development, and accelerate the ecological transition in many areas. Considering how useful space services already are in facing the COVID-19 pandemic and some other emergencies, I argue that we, I mean humankind, could do far better. Indeed, the pandemic has made necessary to make a massive scientific effort using many space services. But to go further, a real planification is necessary. It would help policymakers to put in place measures in order to reduce pollution, mitigate pandemics, and improve public health. I think some institutions can already give us an idea of this cooperation for public health. The COVID-19 pandemic has put the world at a standstill and has changed the way everyone works, communicates, studies, and provides healthcare. Since the beginning of the pandemic, several institutions have published useful data, such as web maps of confirmed infections on this, that are making use of the advantages of geographic information science technologies. In June 2020, the US National Aeronautics and Space Administration, the European Space Agency, and the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency joined forces to develop the COVID-19 Earth Observation Dashboard, which documents planet-wide changes due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Yet others are using a combination of global navigation satellite systems technologies to map the position of critical infrastructure in geographical areas where there are reported cases. in Europe. One service has been really helpful to struggle against the COVID-19 pandemics. It has enabled to follow, in the first time, the impact on atmospheric monitoring of policy decisions of confinement in Europe, and in the second time, to understand the impact of climate change on the spread of COVID-19. I'm speaking about Copernicus satellites observations, and more particularly, already made a commitment to use space technology to help control infectious disease. Since the proclamation of this strategy for using space technologies, it has become clear that space services play an important role in the support of public health and emergencies. The disaster charter and the creation of the UNOSAT service in 2001 have followed. UNOSAT is hosted by the European Centre for Nuclear Research, and the French space agency, the CNES, gave a major impulse to its creation. I regard it as a very inspiring example. Through a very clear and simple process, NGOs and governments can request a technical assistance and use some very precise maps to face emergencies as seism, inundation, or volcanic eruption. I assume it's possible to take such a long-term initiative for public health. Some animal-caused disease, especially the malaria, could be anticipated and mitigated by monitoring environmental parameters as migration of insects or birds, humidity, and so on. We could imagine a global plan to develop all-day medicine for isolated areas. French Polynesia is already trying to implement such a program. Indeed, These space services are of general interest of the population. They are of public utility for the populations. Also, the data available will be broadcasted at the maximum to enable their democratic ownership by the citizens. Furthermore, it's important to have in mind that all these services are essentials and their planification is mandatory to ensure their continuity. That implies an effort of public investment and interagency coordination to guarantee a good pooling of research. As we see, to reach these high and noble goals, we have to choose a non-commercial approach. We have entered an era that requires a deep democratic and at-large cooperation. I'm convinced that space technologies for public health can be a model for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lachaud. Very inspiring, very nice speech from the Parliament of France. So may I invite the next speaker, Christina Giannopapa from the Greek Ministry of Telecommunications and Post.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. I'm giving this speech on behalf of the Secretary General of Telecommunications and Post, who was planning actually to be here with you. But unfortunately, on Thursday, he was called by the Prime Minister and asked to stay in Greece, so I will give his presentation on his behalf. Greece is actually, due to its morphology as a country, having a lot of remote areas, islands, and mountainous locations. And it has been one of the top countries in Europe suffering from natural disasters with fires, as we saw in the previous presentation by the ESA Director General, and also a lot of earthquakes. COVID has been another hit in terms of emergency, giving the importance of connectivity, because Greece, immediately after what was happening in Italy, was one of the countries that completely shut down, and the government had to respond in its coordination at the same time, also to ensure that there is teleeducation and in certain areas telemedicine. And thus, the primary focus of the government has been to use space as an enabler for its digital transformation. So COVID, as we said, has been a very big game changer that managed to bring the country a lot in a different place than it is today. But also in terms of telecommunications, we see in terms of the connectivity that it is not only the governments that are engaging in that and ensuring that connectivity is everywhere. We are today in what is called the space race for satellite and connectivity. Also, during the last period, we have seen that China has also been sending the first 6G test satellite into orbit. And this has to make all of us think how we ensure the next generation of connectivity. So the Greek government has been watching very, very closely what is happening in terms of connectivity activities around. Our minister, Mr. Pierakakis, he was one of the first ministers to join the European Initiative on Quantum Communication Infrastructure. And in particularly in the last ministerial of the European Space Agency, Greece focused a lot on 5G activities and fiber in the sky and beyond to ensure that it is there in the next generation of telecommunications that will ensure connectivity across the country. We have also been watching very, very closely what is happening at the European level with the responses in terms of the new flagship program announced by Commissioner Breton, the space-based global secure communication system that will give the possibility and allow governments to connect in a secure way and to communicate with each other and provide connectivity across Europe in various areas. Greece is a very big supporter of this initiative to ensure that there is connectivity, and Commissioner Breton has been visiting Greece over the summer. He had the chance to speak with the Greek Prime Minister, to speak with the Minister of Digital Governance and the Minister of Defense. And he had the opportunity to participate and make a remote governmental satellite communication exchange with boats that were in the Mediterranean in a video conference real-time via satellites, as Greece is one of the countries in Europe that has today, since 2019, an operational governmental satellite communication system. So the focus of the government has been to ensure digital transformation strategy 2020-2025, to have connectivity for anything, anytime, anywhere. And connectivity means to blend ground, wireless, and space infrastructures. Because when it is, in the cases of emergency and when there are disasters, actually the only thing that works is the satellite communication. So we have been focusing on upgrading our infrastructures, our network and services. And during the time of the COVID, we were one of the first countries to auction the 5G licenses. And it took 298 working days. There were 70 laws passed, regulations and orders, and there were 8 administrative bodies involved. It was done in a record time, and this was also part due to the engagement into the various connectivity activities. So as I said to you, many people think that actually Greece is a newcomer in space, but that's actually not really true. Greece has been involved into the International Telecommunications Union since 1865, being one of the founding members of the ITU. And through that, it has been building its position in space. It has, in 39 East, its orbital position, where in 2003 launched the LASAT satellite, which made Greece into a spacefaring nation. And later on in 2017 and 2019, launched LASAT 3 and LASAT 4, which is providing the governmental satellite communication system of the country. So Greece, over the past years, has been transforming its space sector and its space activities. In 2017, it passed a national law. This national law allows and arranges the regulation of space activities. And also what it did, it moved all the space competencies under let's say, 2 ministries remained competent. The civilian ministry that gathered all civilian competencies, which were scattered before in 5 different ministries, were moved to the Ministry of Digital Governance. This allowed better coordination and better engagement into the space activities. Additionally, in 2019, there was a memorandum of understanding with the Ministry of Defense that remains the Defense Cooperation. So how is it structured? In the last government changes, the Ministry of Digital Governance put together a new directorate called Wireless, 5G and Space in order to show the link between space and terrestrial applications and the importance it is for the broader connectivity of the country. So, and in 2020, a new law was passed which provided the objectives of Greece in its space engagement. And the first priority for Greece is the national security and defense, and especially through the utilization of space infrastructures. The second one is how to enhance the Greek space industry. The third one, how to use space data and to put it into the broader areas of policies, and of course, research and innovation. In 2020, we also published the digital transformation strategy, which actually has specific projects with specific focus areas. And we saw before about the Copernicus Center of the European Space Agency. In 2014, Joseph Aschbacher had the pleasure at that time to open the first Hellenic collaborative ground segment for Copernicus in Greece. And currently, we're looking into expanding it. It has helped really a lot in the areas of disasters to monitor and to respond through our disaster management response services. Then, of course, focusing on the governmental satellite communication system, the next generation of telecommunications, and secure activities. So overall, the Greek government is looking into satellite communications, navigation, Earth observation, and of course, space surveillance and tracking for the safety of the activities. On a step-by-step approach, we are building first and primarily on our governmental satellite communication system with various activities and blending the activities the European Space Agency is doing and the European Union is doing. Because for the government, every euro that it is invested through national funds, it has to have multipliers through the activities at the European Space Agency and the European Union. Just for you as a snapshot to see how we're using our governmental satellite communication systems. So we have Elasat 3 and 4, which is operated by our national operator Elasat. Then at the very bottom, you see there is a hub, which is actually located in very secure premises in our military, and it is operated, the ground segment, by our military. And then on the right-hand side, you can see there is an antenna in every single building of the government, and there is a phone, as you see at the very right, which is basically a satellite phone. So the entire government is connected to the ministers, the secretary generals, the parliamentarians, and also we are expanding this to our embassies already in Paris, in Brussels, and other countries. And of course, the emergency response, and there is also a defense part, which I am not going to talk about. But what the government, when it took over, one of the things that happened is we had a big earthquake and the terrestrial network broke down. So the only way the ministers and the government was able to coordinate with each other was just by picking up the satellite phone. So this gave the possibility to further expand and promote the different parts. So also, Elodie, the director of telecommunications, visited recently Greece. She came and she saw the premises in the military that host the GovSatcom, and had the opportunity to also make a teleconference with them. Our engagement and activities in the area of connectivity through satellite and also the fact that we have very good weather is bringing new investments, like KSAT is planning to make the first commercial optical station in Greece. That was announced in April 2020. The European Space Agency has selected Helmos Observatory, which is basically the largest telescope in Central Eastern Europe, to use it for connecting via satellite and bringing down data and to further making secure communications. This summer, we had the opportunity with the ESA team to actually connect to AlphaSat and to be able to receive a signal. You can see in the video the blinking, which is basically the communication signal that comes from AlphaSat. So it was very successful, and now we're going to the next activities of the upgrading of the system. But you cannot have only one ground station for the next generation. So we have already planned and we are working with the European Space Agency to have one in the south of the country and one in the north of the country, to ensure that there is connectivity across the country for secure communications. We're building now on the next part of connectivity. We see all together GovSatcom, European Union Quantum Communication Infrastructure, and looking at the connectivity initiative of Commissioner Breton with 5G and 6G further, blending space and terrestrial activities, having the possibility to receive secure signals into the telescopes, bringing them further into the system and enhancing our existing civil and military governmental satellite communication system with our Elasat satellites. This is a little bit how the planning is going to be to enhance further secure communications for Europe and also for Greece. The European Space Agency with Eagle-1 is going to be sending quantum keys to Helmos, and then these will be propagated, and there will be specific repeaters that will bring it across to the capital. The same thing will happen in the north and in the south of the country. And recently we closed Greece through the rescue and resilient funds that it has been receiving from the European Union. It is investing 200 million euros for a satellite development project, which is going to be entrusted to the European Space Agency in order to develop, manufacture, and put in orbit a constellation of intelligent satellites with primarily telecommunications and connectivity, and secondary payloads that will help to respond to disaster management activities. So the government is making this mosaic of the different activities, making them step by step. And also just to let you know that when we auctioned the 5G licenses, 25% of this amount of money went into a fund, a national fund called FESTOS, which is basically for investing into bringing new technologies, new companies into the market, because this is a big gap that us governments are called to step in to ensure that we help the next generation of companies bring in their products. So with that, the government sees space as an enabler for the digital transformation, important in all areas, health, emergency, and so on. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Christina, for this really fantastic presentation. It's quite remarkable how Greece has transformed itself and is using space for the especially for the digital transformation, in this case, emergency and health, which is the theme of today. So let me introduce the next speaker, Jako Brisenko, who is a member of the Polish Parliamentary Space Subgroup, speaking, as mentioned before, on behalf of Boguslav Wontor. Please.
Thank you very much, distinguished hosts and participants. It's a great pleasure to be here and to speak on behalf of the Polish Parliamentary Space Group, but also I happen to be head of the Crisis Information Center, so I will be talking also from the professional perspective. And when we speak about the benefits of the civil society, it's really clear that the crisis management sector is indeed experiencing them very clearly, and they are quite tangible and immediate. They are immediately visible, and it's mainly about Earth observation, but not only. In Earth observation, we have more and more satellites, more and more data with better time and spatial resolution. And it looks like this really gives us a foundation to progress, to transform from just providing the image of the crisis to support crisis management operations to a more advanced thing, to thinking about monitoring, to giving continuously information about the crisis, to provide data which will be available to the users in the form which is optimal to them, which is waiting for them. And also to progress beyond just reacting to the crisis. It's also about giving the information, space-based information, as an input to the risk assessment, to the risk management, to really address the risks that we as a humanity will be experiencing more and more with the climate change and the challenges of the modern world. Let me start from the bit of the history. In 2010, we were affected in Poland by the more major flooding, the largest in the history, 2 waves, which really destroyed a lot of property and unfortunately took quite a number of lives. But at that time, we had a huge operation, crisis management operations, which was supported by the satellites. We had more than 22 institutions which were directly provided with satellite data. At that time, I had a pleasure. I was in command of this satellite part and working directly with the institutions, understanding what they need and giving them this information. We were also conducting monitoring for 4 regions after the flooding, where we are supporting the recovery process and monitoring the water removal with the dedicated support products developed by them based on Earth observation. But now we are thinking about use of space in a more systematic way. We're really trying to build upon the space capacities to provide the added value to the end users. And I think what I will be talking about is very directly linked with the rapid and resilience crisis response, which ISA is thinking about as an element of its policy and strategy. Just as one of the examples, we are conducting the project, by the way, funded by the European Space Agency as part of the cooperation between the special mechanism between Poland and ISA, where we are not only developing the project because the products are already existing, or capability to provide the product is already existing within the space sector among the companies. The problem is to make them optimal for the end users, to integrate them into the logic of conducting crisis operations. And this is the focus of this kind of activities. We are trying to streamline the process of providing the information. We want to integrate them into the GIS systems, the geographic information systems, which are used by the crisis information world. We are also trying to ensure that they are really user-friendly with the interfaces, but also the content, the form, even the colors, optimal. So they will be really the added value the moment they are provided, particularly during the crisis, when the time is critical and the message should be as clear as possible. This is just one of the elements. But when I talk about integration, we see a lot of other needs for integration. One of the integration is also integrating together different sources of information. Last year, during the COVID, we had the largest in 25 years wildfire in Poland. It was the wildfire of the Biebrza National Park. And the real problem was to get an overview of the situation and keep this information updated. We were working closely at that time in Poland between the crisis management sector and the military image recognition center, which we have as part of the military structure. And using both Copernicus data and the military provided information, we are getting the continuously updated satellite maps showing how the fire area or the burned area was growing through the 4 or 5 days. We are showing the fire fronts. I wouldn't say it was the critical information, but it was a useful information. It was something which we were in contact with the staff of the commander in field, and we know that this was a useful support information provided to them. But the important element which I want to emphasize here is integration, to ensure that the already existing capability, in this case in military, can really effectively provide information to the crisis responders, that this is smoothly working, that this is really a valuable input. The last element of integration which I talk about is integrating different sources. And in this case, it is about integrating satellite data and the drone delivered informations. The drones are really having a much better response times, and they complement what we can see from the satellites in a very good way. But there is a challenge here. Normally, and particularly in the case of the fire situations, wildfire situation, you have a lot of planes in the air. You cannot conduct easily the drone activities when you have the human operated aircraft in the air. But GNSS is coming to support here. It's another aspect of space solutions which are really helping. And I'm quite proud to say that Poland is currently the most advanced country in Europe in implementing operational traffic management services for drones. And we are trying to benefit from this. In these systems, which aim at ensuring that we can operationally use drones, we are trying also to ensure that we can use them